Hi everyone, welcome back to Journey into Ayurveda. Thank you for joining us in episode 8. Last time we had conversation with our classmate series and we had Jeff. That was amazing. Today we are bringing back Ayurveda Fact versus Fiction. We wanted to discuss common diet and fats trends and what we think about them and through the lens of Ayurveda. This time we are talking about raw foods. Are raw foods Satvic? This is an interesting topic. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, super interesting. I was like really geeking out about all of the stuff that we were coming up with on this one, so I can't wait to get into it.
Yes. Can you walk us through internalization?
Of course. So I thought, we're it's August now. I can't believe it's August already, but I'm in Colorado right now and it's really hot. And it's Pitta season in the Western Hemisphere. So I thought we could do Sitkali breath. It's a more of a cooling kind of focused breath. So well, it's kind of a funny thing that you do with your tongue, and some of us can't actually do this with your tongue, but the idea is that you're going to make like a little taco shape with your tongue like this. And then you're going to breathe in through that space in your tongue, and then you're going to have a normal breath out through your nose. If you can't do that shape with your tongue, you're just going to imagine that you can, and that will suffice. The other thing that you can do is breathe through your teeth. So it'll be like is another option. I don't like doing that one. It like weirds me out a little bit, but that's another option if you want to do it. And you'll get the same benefit. So you can do the taco shape with your tongue. You can breathe, you imagine that you have the shape with your tongue, or you can breathe through your teeth like I just did. So find a nice neutral spine, ears, shoulders, hips all stacked, feet firmly planted on the ground. And let's just take a normal breath in through your nose. Normal breath out through your mouth. Good, and you'll make that shape with your tongue. Breathe in. Breathe out through your nose. Keep going just like that. Breathe in. Close your mouth, exhale. Couple more rounds. Let's do one more round. Breathe in. And exhale. Allow your breath to come back to a natural rhythm and cadence. And if you softened your eyes, you can gently blink them back open. How was that for you, Ashwini?
Amazing.
Awesome. So something that I thought was so interesting when I first learned this breath, it was years ago in one of my teacher trainings. So this is not verified by like vet techs or anything. But dogs actually breathe with their mouths open when they're hot because it
Yeah.
naturally cools them down. So that's essentially like the same mechanism that we're doing is breathing like a dog. So you're breathing in, that air exposure on your tongue, like almost instantly cools you down. So this breath is really helpful, if you feel a bit fiery and you're like, I need to cool myself down. Don't reach for that cold glass of ice water. Just do a Sitkali breath, like way better for all around health.
Yes, perfect. I need this. I am hot-headed. I need it all the time.
Yeah, good. Hopefully it's helpful.
Yes, it is. Definitely. So yeah, raw food does raw food mean? Raw food is the foods which are not cooked, like salads, juices, smoothies, where you just blend the raw vegetables and fruits. Technically, raw meat uh can be taken as well, but it's a big no for many reasons, including food poisoning. So hopefully nobody is doing that. Kate, can you walk us through what's the right definition of raw foods? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think sushi can be one of those exceptions of eating that raw
Mm.
meat. But then, yeah, all the other ones. Yeah. So yeah, I was super curious about like the origins of raw food and like, what this was all about. So I went to one source. This was not like an extensive research practice that I did here, but I went to Precision Nutrition Online, and they talked about the raw food movement that's been around since the 1800s. It's the idea that, we're not heating or cooking food over 115 to 118 degrees. I'm not sure what the intentionality with that specific temperature point is. But the thought behind it is that the food that's consumed in this kind of raw form is meant to preserve nutrients, enzymes, and diminish like the energy expelled from humans in cooking. Typically, those who are, quote, raw foodists also tend to be vegan. The two obviously go kind of hand in hand. Some of the claims made about the benefits of raw food is that it clears the mind, it clears the skin, it improves bowel movements. We'll talk about that. Improves sleep, improves energy, and the body is able to lose fat. So again, this is literally just from one site. This isn't based on any kind of extensive scientific research or methodologies. I just thought it would be helpful to give folks a little bit more kind of background information. So if you know more about this, like, please feel free to share if you have any of the scientific background on it. But Ashwini, I'm curious, like, do you have experience with eating strictly raw foods? How has this worked for you? What have you tried?
Yes, I have. I mean, who hasn't eaten raw foods in their diet like once in a while? For sure. I love raw salads and vegetables. I used to make like lettuce, all the same raw vegetables and salads we have now. But when I ate it, I usually felt more constipating, bloating, which is normal. Like anybody who starts raw diet, they feel that. And through my Ayurvedic learning, I started learning that I have vata imbalance, and that means raw food does not suit me personally very well. In generally speaking, raw foods are ruksha, that means drying in nature. Also, that can also increase mandagni, that's weakened agni. So drying in nature will cause more weakened agni because they are hard to digest. That we can tell by looking at them. This is because of high fiber in the raw veggies as well. We can talk a little bit more about it later, but sadly, I cannot have raw foods. Kate, what about you? Have you tried eating raw food diet?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, like, who hasn't? So especially when I was starting out a vegan, I think I shared this in that episode. Like, I didn't really know what I could eat necessarily, but I was like, oh, salads, that's a go-to. And I remember specifically in the summertime when I was still working for the Department of Corrections, one of my coworkers and I would like bring in all these different like salad items. Like, we would cut all the veggies the night before and like bring in salad dressing and nuts and like all these things. And we would share and make these like huge salads. And I think both of us at the time were like, we need veggies. They're good for us. Let's eat these huge salads and like be super healthy. Um, and I don't know that I had the awareness then to realize that like I did not feel good when I would eat these huge salads. Like you said, you have the vata imbalances. I have vata in my prakriti, my nature. And so it's not great for us like that because we're already dry. We're that ruksha quality like you talked about. And so like increases like if I'm eating things that are dry, I'm living in Colorado. Like at the time that I did this, I was in Colorado too. So I'm already dry. I'm eating dry foods. It's a dry summer season in Colorado. Like it's way too much dryness. So that's like super key. And then more recently, like I've been bouncing around between Washington and California and Colorado. And so this was, I don't know, in the last month or two, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a salad. It's like hot out. It'll taste so good. And like, it was so bad. Like it just like sat in my stomach and just like did not digest for so long. So I definitely had that Manda Agni that you described, that really slow, like weak Agni. And mine really varies. I have the Vishnu Agni, but Vishnu towards Manda. And so that's not ever helpful to introduce, those harder to digest, heavier, dry foods when you already experience those kind of symptoms. But let's geek out a little bit more about this. Ashwini, will you take us through like the Ayurvedic take on raw foods?
Yes, definitely. My sense is that the benefit people talk about raw food often from like it's mostly because American diet in general is lacking fiber. The fiber is removed like when you get a packaged food from any supermarket, they remove the fiber from that. Like even like microwavable rice, people get, they have removed the fiber and then just kept the rice. Like what's the point of eating rice? Why? Because it tastes good. Like, if you remove the fiber out of the food, it will make the food taste good. Generally speaking, fiber tastes like cardboard if you just let it in. So they want that, like, umness when you eat the food. So they're trying to get that. So for you to get like same benefits, sorting vegetables and adding them to your diet will have the same benefits, like clear your mind, clear skin, improved bowel movement, improved sleep, improved energy, and body fat loss. All those can be achieved by eating sorted vegetables. They are the same. Ayurveda says raw food in general, you have to have very strong agni, like Kate was describing. Also, raw food is very light and dry. That means vata. What is vata? Vata is also light and dry. So Ayurvedic rules, like increases light. So that means raw food increases vata in the body. We will talk a lot about vata, because when vata is increased in the body, that gives rise to a lot number of diseases. And also, like, all the diseases we talk about today, a lot of them are due to vata. So we are making sure our vata is in level. We are not aggravating it at all. So that's why we talk a lot about vata in general. In terms of sattvic diet, we all, like, when people talk about raw diet, they think like sattvic diet means raw diet. The sattvic diet, people who tell raw juice, raw food, anything raw is sattvic, like, they don't even know ABCs of Ayurveda. I'm so sorry about that, but I can tell they don't know anything, because sattvic food for the people who are living in cities, because I'm strictly talking about like sattvic lifestyle for people in cities, because people who are wandering in forest, they have different set of rules in eating raw versus not raw. So for people who are in cities, living city life, for them, sattvic food is avoiding extreme of rajasic and tamasic food. By eating vata aggravating food, like we saw, our raw foods are vata aggravating. So by eating raw vata aggravating food in general will increase rajas in nature. So you will have more rajasic in nature. And if you start having constipation because you have more of the dryness in your body, and vata ama will start accumulating in your body. So ama is toxin in your body. So the more constipation gives rise to more toxins in the body, which anybody can understand. It's very easy correlation. So occasionally eating raw food and salad is no harm. It depends on the person and on the season. So in summer, if pitta prakriti, and high pitta person can eat raw salad once in a while, and they can digest it really well. And also, I heard another one. She's Nidhi from Instagram. She's an influencer. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner. She was talking about studies how human brain started developing the same time when they started discovering fire and started cooking. So raw foods needs more energy in general to digest. So hence we didn't have the optimum capacity for other organs in our body. If our digestion takes place too much energy, other organs does not have the optimum nature that it should be in. I mean, all the theories aside, like, we can come up with numerous theories, but if we keep them aside, when you eat the raw food on regular basis, you will start noticing more gas, bloating, constipation. Meal will take forever to digest. This is the very amazing point about meal should not take forever to digest. Yes, you shouldn't be feeling hungry as soon as you eat your food. You should feel satisfied. That's what Ayurveda is all about, feeling satisfied with your meal and not feeling hungry as soon as you eat your food. But Ayurveda also talks about, like, you shouldn't take forever to digest your meal. So what's happening if you're taking forever to digest your meals? That means toxins are accumulating. Your body is working twice as much to digest the food you ate. That's also not good for our body in general. This tells us this tells us what your body is asking for. Like, cooking will help the body to digest better. Cooking on the stove and digestion in your body is like a two-step process, same process of breaking down what we eat. So we are cooking so that our body doesn't have so much of a work to properly utilize our food we eat. A lot of Ayurveda is very intuitive. Like when we invited Jeff, he was also talking about how intuitive he felt about learning Ayurveda. All of us feel the same. When we say something using causes vata imbalance, we will start avoiding food which causes vata imbalance. We'll start seeing the result of the same things, like, oh yeah, like my vata is going down, that's why I'm not noticing any of the symptoms anymore. That's very basics of Ayurveda is. So next question that follows, how about fruits? Kate, can you tell us the fruits? Can you eat the fruits raw? Does that needs to be cooked? When can we eat fruits, and who can eat them?
Yeah. So such a thorough explanation and examination of the raw foods and like the need to cook them. And like, if you're living this, like, we call it like the life of the aesthetic, if you're living like a monk or a nun and you're not like stuck in traffic or you're not like stressed out about your job, like you're probably like a pretty ideal person to have smaller meals. You can eat more of those raw foods. You don't need to eat as much either. So you're not like messing with the rajasic, that like action oriented energy, and the tamasic, the like dull dark energy, because you're already kind of living in this environment that's very sattvic and balanced and pure. Um, so I think that's like so interesting to point all of that out. And I love the like evolutionary, like anthropological exploration that you did there too. That like once we figured out how to cook our food, like we haven't really gone back to that. Like we've always then since cooked our food, and there's a reason, because it's much more easy to digest. So we're helping the body out. So a couple of things with fruit is that in general, if we look at like the categories of fruits, fruits are considered to be the most sattvic. So like the most pure, the most balanced. Having said that, mostly the tastes for fruits are sweet, sour, and sometimes astringent. So sometimes drying, like cranberries are pretty astringent. So it's important, and I think we talked about this when we did the vegan fact versus fiction, that when we look at the energetics of the foods and the energetics of our doshas, or our prakriti, our constitution, that when we do anything that's in excess, that's when we can become imbalanced. So I'm dry if I'm eating fruits that are really drying. As an example, like in excess, this isn't going to be from like one cranberry, but like if I continually do it over and over, that's going to like impact my body. So the other thing with the energetics of fruit is that they're cold. So now, because fruits are cooling, they're also related to the air element, not because of that, but they're also related to the air element. So if you think about air and you think about cold or cooling, those are also the same qualities of vata. Kapha can run cooler, so there can be some stuff with that, but kapha is more of the energy of earth, so it's heavier. That air element is vata. So you may experience, like you talked about, Ashwini, with like the constipation and the gas and the bloating. There can also then be those mental experiences of being spacey and just kind of feeling unsettled or ungrounded. Typically when I'm unbalanced, those are the things that I notice first. And so I think that is more noticeable. The constipation, gas, bloating, the spaciness, the ungroundedness is maybe like people that have that vata prakriti or the vata vrikriti. So there's prakriti, which is like our nature, our balanced state. And then vrikriti is more that like imbalanced state, or the state of disease. So having said that, knowing that there can be in excess those experiences of spaciness and ungroundedness, because fruit is sattvic, it also promotes lightness, clarity, intelligence, etc. So we want to eat fruit. And then, when we talk about like I was talking about, like the life of the aesthetic. So if all I ate was fruit and I'm like driving on 6th Ave here in the metro area, if you're in the Denver area, you know what I'm talking about, during rush hour, like I'm not going to be feeling really balanced because I'm going to feel stressed out and I have that rajasic nature. And maybe I'm going to start to get like really aggravated because of that. Or I'm going to start to get really spacey and like up in the ethers about things, and I'm not going to see the brake lights in front of me. Like it's not going to be great for any of us. So there is the utility in living that sattvic lifestyle and having that sattvic diet to complement it. But by and large, for most of us, that's just not our existence right now. So the other thing that I want to say with fruit is the time to eat fruit. So there's improper combinations in Ayurveda. We don't want to mix in like fruit with our other meals. So it's typically best to eat fruits in the afternoon as a snack, standalone. And so, you don't want to eat it in the morning and kapha time. They're like colder, it's kapha time, it's already cooler. So they can be a little bit harder to digest. The other thing is that, and this I don't think is shocking because we've talked about this already in this episode, but you can cook your fruits. And so there's been times where, I've been a little bit more settled. I've been able to like cook a little bit of fruit for breakfast, and that has sustained me. So that's really the only other time personally that I've had the experience of being able to eat fruit like kind of on their own standalone. But otherwise, you're going to want to consume them. And I think most people would do best to consume them in the afternoon time. So another quick thing about veggies, when we talk about like the energetics of food, is that veggies are also considered to be sattvic. So you kind of talked about that already, Ashwini. And there's root veggies. These happen to be my fave because they're very like nutritive. They're very grounding. They're heavy. So if you're kapha folks, you're kapha imbalanced or kapha by nature, you probably don't need a ton of these root veggies. These are things like beets, carrots, potatoes, yams. These are like all my favorite things to eat all the time because they really ground me. Leafy greens are lighter, they're drying. And so if we think about, like you talked about, like increases, like these aren't the best for Vata balanced people or Vata Vrikriti or Prakriti folks. So like increases, like in excess, you're going to have more drying, more light by nature. If you're already Vata, you're going to introduce more of that. You're going to be like up in the ethers, like I talked about. There's also pungent veggies like onions and chilies. Those are more rajasic in nature, and those can increase some of the different pitta qualities in people, the more kind of heating, action-oriented folks. So again, these are general guidelines. Like Ashwini, you said the most common answer that we get when we ask questions in class, we're like, can we eat this or can we do this? And our teachers or the Videyas are like, it depends, because these are very general considerations. But in general, if you're Vata dominant or imbalanced with Vata, cooked or steamed veggies with oils, salts, and spices are going to be best. Pitta folks, like Ashwini talked about, if you're strong in your digestion, it's Pitta season maybe, you have strong Agni or digestion already, you're probably going to be okay to eat raw or to lightly steam your veggies. Like on occasion, do the raw thing and see how you feel. Kapha people like cooking veggies. You can do the grilled option because those will kind of dry it out a little bit more. Kapha people tend to be more wet anyway, like moist is their part of their makeup. So grilling, you can steam them as well with some different spices. So with all of that, Ashwini, let's get down to the verdict here. Are raw foods and Ayurveda compatible? Are they wholly compatible?
Yes. Before we do that, like I also heard a news where the person was eating just raw fruits for their diet, the entirety of their diet for like 10 years. They, because of the nutritional deficiency, they lost their life. It's not really that simple. You have to use a time tested kind of diet for your life so that you don't play with it. So it's super important to understand all this and start incorporating all these things in a life. For me, especially, I really like how Ayurveda talks about it, and it's 5,000 year old. So it's been working for 5,000 year for people. So it will work for me. I'm not that special. So I'm fine with that. So that's what I love about Ayurveda. The verdict is it depends. Everything in Ayurveda is it depends. Ayurveda never generalizes or never gives a blanket statement to eat or not eat something. The answer is always it depends on the person. In this case, it depends on what state the person's Agni is, Ama is, and what season they are in, how often they can eat raw food, all those things. So if like I said earlier, if you are a Pitta person and you have heavy digestion, you can eat anything, eat that in summer, you will digest it fine. But if you're already having constipation issues, bloating issues, it's better to avoid them. Even diarrhea is another form. We shouldn't be doing that. We should have like well balanced meals if our Agni Ama is imbalanced, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And like the individualized nature of Ayurveda is really what has always called to me too, that there are general guidelines to follow and general things to think about. But once you get more nuanced in it and you start to understand how different foods affect you and you feel differently with them, that's when it becomes like even more magical, which I just think is super cool.
For sure.
Yeah. And so I think, to add on to like your verdict statement and agreeing with like it depends for sure. I think the thing that is beneficial of eating whole foods that comes from raw foods, right? So like diet and lifestyle changes are key to making these lasting impacts to our health. So anytime we're introducing fresh veggies, fresh fruits, they're local, they're like with the season, like that is optimal. You're going to cook them to the level that you need to. So pittas, maybe you don't cook them as much, but like the rest of us by and large really should like cook. The other thing too is that when we start to cook, like we're psychologically preparing our body to eat, which I just think is so interesting. Like you naturally will start to salivate, you start to smell it, like your body is like, I'm looking over at the kitchen now because it's lunchtime here. Like, what am I going to cook? Because I'm psychologically like getting ready to do that. And that's a big piece of it. So when you're cooking and you start to smell it and you're like touching all of the veggies as you're chopping them, like my mouth is salivating now just talking about this. Like that's part of the experience. And it's really super cool to do that. And so, we can talk about the elements and like all of the elements are in all of these fruits or all of the foods that we're eating, the Mahabhutas. And so those are the elements outside of us. We intake them, they become transitioned into the Mahabhutas inside of us. So we're literally like one with the nature in that conversion. So Ashwini, with all of this, like, what do we do with all this information now?
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing you said. Like you have when you're cooking food, you're also salivating and preparing your body. I think that's why I cook my food with hands and eat with hands. I really love all the mahabhutas getting involved while I'm eating.
Totally.
Yeah, like kids last time, we do everything in moderation. Sarva karmeshu madhyamam. Have salad once in a while if you like it. Just make sure your digestion is good shape first. And cooked vegetable should be larger part of your diet, no matter what diet you follow. In my opinion, a person should always stick to cooked foods if they're experiencing constipation, gut sensitivity, or sensitive digestion. Overall, all these are vata related issue. If you're experiencing this, vata always needs some extra love. So have that stir fried veggies in your diet. Your digestion will thank you for sure.
Yeah, the Vata people, like we all need all the love, but like Vata people especially. So I'm with you. All things in moderation. If you have the strong Agni, and I think maybe this is like an idea for a future podcast, is to talk about like what a strong Agni looks like. Because I think there's still like so many things that I'm learning about my own system that maybe that would be helpful for folks. Like, what does it mean to have a strong Agni? So yeah, if you're Pitta constitution, it's summertime, you have good Agni, have your raw foods, have your salads, that's totally fine. And then also know that, like you said, Ashwini, like always having cooked veggies as part of your diet, regardless of what you're following, is always going to be great. So anything else to add?
No, that's all for today. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for joining us in episode 8, Fact versus Fiction, and part 2. As a reminder, the aim is to provide educational content and share a bit more of our journey into Ayurveda. Check out our Instagram and TikTok. I will link all the channels down below in the description. And for more info on fact versus fads this week, we will be back soon with another episode. If you have any suggestion for us for our next fact versus fiction, put that in the description below. We will make sure we will do that as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.